All right, let's begin. So, good evening to the folks here in India and everywhere else. A big thank you to everyone who joined us, today. My name is Smarth Wasdev, and I represent the product folks. TPF is a volunteer-driven community of product managers, designers, marketeers, enthusiasts, leaders from the tech space who have been working in the product management space for quite a while. We are a 20K strong community with members across the globe, majorly in South Asia. Apart from a lot of these events and webinars that we do, we have a bunch of other initiatives that we launch. One of them being Learn PM with me, curated content for people who actually want to do upskilling in the domain of product management, which is of course available for free. Most suitable for people who are looking to get into product management space, and also for a lot of early PM folks who are early on in their careers. We have a different platform for connecting professionals in the product space as well, something by the name of Grab Chai Online. We'll be posting these links in the chat box, by the way. So yeah, feel free to check those out. We also have, we also run APM boot camps with another, another initiative that we have, Insurger.club. And yes, the biggest thing, which of course a lot of you might already be aware of, the elephant in the room, which is the product summit. We're coming up with India's biggest virtual product management conference in partnership with Inc. 42. And there are lot of amazing speakers and delegates that have already confirmed their presence. We're doing this on 10th and 11th of October. In case you haven't registered, please do. You're going to miss out. With the entire theme of TPS, of course, is on building high growth products for India. And yeah, feel free to check that out. So first of all, thank you so much, Jonathan, for being with us. And it's we are glad that you're here to share your insights. Quickly briefing everyone about the agenda for today. Um, of course, a lot of other folks are still joining in that I see. We'll begin with a quick introduction about Jonathan for about a few minutes, and then of course we'll hand it over to Jonathan to speak and share his insights. He can just screen share for half an hour or so, somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes, and once that's done, we will close it out with a Q&A that we have. Uh, for another 20 minutes. And please keep sending in your questions so that we can pick it up from them. We'll be crowdsourcing the questions as and when they come. So yeah, handing it over to Aditya.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the great intro. Hey guys, this is Aditya from the Product Folks. I'll be co-hosting the event along with Smart. Just to give a quick intro about Jonathan, he has over 15 years of experience working in the tech space. He's currently the Senior Director of Product at One Championship, which is Asia's largest sports media property. Previously, he was in senior roles at Rakuten and Microsoft, so we'll get to learn a lot of insights from those experiences as well. And he has also donned multiple hats as a founder and investor as well, right? I've seen the deck and very excited for the session myself. Hope you guys have a great time. And by the way, we have a small surprise for all the attendees at the end, so make sure that you don't miss out on that. Stick till the end, send in your questions, and after the questions, we'll give you a small surprise for attending the event today. Over to you, Jonathan. Handing it over. Jonathan will be conducting the session, and feel free to send in all your questions, which we'll take after Jonathan is done.
Cool. First things first, do I get the surprise too? Am I eligible?
Of course, of course. You'll get a
All
bigger
right.
surprise.
Okay. Well, hey guys, really excited to be here, and it's always great to connect with the South Asia product community as well. Frankly speaking, I'm not that used to doing events on Saturday evenings because usually in Southeast Asia and Singapore, most of our meetups and talks like this happen on the weekdays. So thank you for spending your precious time on a Saturday night to join us in this little cozy talk. And yeah, today's topic, what I really wanted to talk to you guys about is the topic is, do you have a pulse and identifying the traits that make great product managers. So this is really a talk about hiring, and I'll get a little bit more into that as we move along. Okay. So like the guys have introduced, I'm currently the Senior Director of Product at One Championship. Previously came from Rakuten Viki, and before that, Microsoft. Spent about 15 years doing a lot of different things in tech. I was fortunate enough to have roles in engineering, business development. I even did pre-sales before, marketing, developer relations. About the only thing that I haven't tackled in tech yet is venture capital. And to be honest, I don't think that's really for me because I can't stand looking at a spreadsheet. But anyway, so yes, I ended up in product management, and I really feel that this really is my first love, which is to build entertaining products for users. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, on Twitter, it's Armchair Do, and almost everywhere else, it's Armchair Theorist. The reason why I couldn't do Armchair Theorist on Twitter as well is because it's too many letters. So damn you, Twitter. Okay, so this is the central thesis of my talk today, which is it's hard to hire experienced PMs in Asia. All right, so this is really why we're here. To be frank with you, product management as a discipline, at least I can't speak for South Asia and India, but speaking for Singapore, it's actually an emerging discipline, right? I would equate product management today probably where UX and the whole discipline and function around UX designers was about 5 years ago. People sort of know about it, but there are not a lot of practitioners, much less experienced practitioners. So generally speaking, if you are in a product or tech company based in Singapore and you want to hire experienced PMs, and not only in Singapore, I would say across Asia as well, it's very difficult to find experienced PMs, right? Especially if you're not a name brand MNC like Facebook, Google, or Amazon, right? So what often happens, and this is speaking from my personal experience from interviewing over 50 PM candidates over the last, 5-6 years, as well as building up our own product teams at both Rakuten Viki and currently at One Championship. Oftentimes you need to take a chance to hire a PM who may not have any PM experience at all. So we're talking about mid-career switchers, working as engineers in the past or doing different roles in the past. And that's why it's really important to be able to identify what are the traits that generally give you a better shot of making a successful PM hire, considering all of these guys have no track records and have no PM experiences to speak of. Now, I have to disclaim, everything I talk about here in this talk today is based on my personal experience. Hiring is something that's largely based on context, right? Depending on the type of company you are, the culture of the company, maybe the hiring manager, personality compatibility, right? No matter what kind of best practices that you may have for hiring, at the end of the day, hiring is something that's very personal to each individual hiring manager and company. So whatever I share today may not be applicable to you, but it's okay because the more opinions and thoughts we have out there, the more that people can make better decisions. So again, just to say, this is all strictly my view. Okay. Now let's start off with a thesis, which is that hiring is often a trade-off decision between performance ceiling versus the time you need to hit the ceiling. The other way to look at this is it's basically experience versus potential, right? For someone who has experience, it helps them get up to speed quicker and start contributing quicker. However, I will argue that having the right traits potentially will give you a higher performance ceiling, right? So for example, maybe I want to make an experienced hire, someone who has experience as a PM or in this domain before, right? They can ramp up fairly quickly, as you see from the red line, for a solid experienced hire, and they sort of quickly hit their performance ceiling, and they basically perform at that level. You also have not so good or so-so experienced hire. Same thing, they can ramp up quickly, they can start contributing quickly, but they have a limited ceiling. Now, I would argue that if you can find someone with the right traits, even if they don't have experience, they may have amazing potential where the ramp up may be slower for them to hit their stride, but at the end of the day, they actually have a higher ceiling than those that are experienced. Now, what you don't want, which is the worst, which is you take a chance on an inexperienced PM without the right traits, and basically they're slow to ramp, and they never really hit the ceiling that you want them to hit. And in fact, near the end, their performance may even actually decline because they're either frustrated, they don't think the role is good for them and whatnot. So that's something that you want to try to avoid. Okay, now before that, let's play a game. Okay, for the next few set of slides, I'm going to put on the screen 2 PM candidates. All right, and basically, you guys can also tell me which PM will you hire for a particular role, and then I'll share with you my answer. Okay, now these are all fictional examples. Okay, but however, they're all somewhat based on actual candidates that I have actually interviewed in the past. So if you want to play, and you don't have to, but if you want to play, you can just type in the chat box either A or B, depending on who you want to hire. All right. So let's start with the first one. Okay. So I have an opening for a junior product management role at Rakuten Viki. And for those of you who are not familiar with Viki, we are basically a VOD service that specializes in Korean dramas and Asian content, right? So candidate A, all right, early career, 3 years experience, former failed entrepreneur, right? She started a startup before, but didn't get anywhere. Loves K-dramas. And throughout the interview process, as we sort of find out that, she really wanted to do a mid-career switch to product management, and she actually prepared for this PM interview for 6 months. No PM experience. Okay, candidate B, mid-career, about 5 years experience, worked in a tech MNC, you can think like Microsoft or whatnot, for her whole career, and she learned a lot of valuable experiences from her MNC stay. She wanted to pivot to the exciting world of startups because that's where it seems that all the action is nowadays. And same thing, she has no PM experience. So, I accidentally showed my answer, but who will you guys hire? Let me see, A. Okay, well, since I already showed the slide, yes, you're right. This was actually based on an actual hire I made at Viki. So I hired candidate A, and there's a few things I like, right? Because firstly, for candidate A, there's a strong sense of purpose, right? The fact that she was willing to prepare for the PM interview for 6 months shows drive and willingness to switch careers. And she really wants to be at Viki because she loves Korean dramas, right? Also, the fact that she was a failed entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial background is a strong leading indicator for the fact that she can get things done. The other candidate may be a bit more experienced, and potentially experience at a tech MNC is valuable. But if you look at it, she doesn't really show a strong reason for joining, except maybe, she wants to FOMO into the startup space because that's where all the action is, right? So the sense of purpose is not as strong. And since this is a junior role, this is a junior opening, I'd rather take a chance on the candidate that has a stronger reason, desire to be here, okay? Cool, I think most of you got the same as me. Okay, same thing. This time it's a mid-level PM opening working on monetization initiatives, okay? Candidate A, mid-career, about 7 years experience, previously worked in a big 5 consulting firm. Her favorite part about being a consultant is that the fact that she gets to network and meet new people all the time and make new friends, lasting friendships in the industry, all right? She has some limited PM experience through her consulting work, all right? Candidate B, mid-career, also about 6 years experience or so, previously worked as an engineer building monetization features. So he certainly has the domain expertise there. He wants to be a PM because he couldn't get along with all the PMs he worked with before. He thinks they're terrible, and he thinks that he can do a better job. So based on both of these candidates, A or B, who will you hire? I'll give you guys 5 seconds. A, ha, 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 ha. A. All right, it seems that the A is overwhelming. Okay, oh, someone voted for B. Interesting. Okay, my answer, okay? I would hire candidate A, okay, for a couple of reasons, all right? Firstly, working in a consulting firm, to me, and again, this is just my personal experience, having worked with consultants before and having successfully hired PMs who were working as consultants before, consulting firm experience is a great leading indicator for a couple things, in my opinion. Number one, ability to communicate, communication skills. And number two, most importantly, a lot of what a consultant does is to fit a logical thought process and a logical framework to customers' problems, which, if you think about it, is exactly what a PM does. So even if they don't have actual product making experience, PM experience, that logical thought process is very important. And the bonus is that her desire to network, to meet new people and make new friends, shows soft skills, and also it's also a strong leading indicator to me for being able to work with people. The other candidate, to be honest with you, is actually very qualified experience-wise. The fact that he used to be an engineer who worked on building monetization features is directly in the kind of domain experience you would want, when you're looking at a PM working on monetization. However, not being able to get along and thinking all the blame for things that goes wrong goes to other people, that is a huge red flag. So for that reason, between these two fictional candidates or somewhat fictional candidates, I would choose A. Okay, last one. Okay, so this is a role for a senior PM for cryptocurrencies are pretty hot now, right? So let's say a hypothetical company is hiring for a senior PM in charge of DeFi products for crypto. Okay, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. All right. Candidate A, mid-career, 8 years of experience, engineering background, which is always good. PM experience, good PM experience in logistics and e-commerce domains. This guy is a strong presenter, frequently speaks at events. All right. However, no experience in blockchain. Candidate B, okay, also around mid-career, 7 years of experience. This guy is a PM that has experience working in a large MNC bank, working on banking apps. Okay, so both of these guys have PM experience. Candidate B has an MBA, thinks that crypto as an industry is interesting, but so far he hasn't really invested in it yet, and also similarly, no experience in blockchain. Now, assume both candidate A and B test out equally well on everything else. Out of these two, who we hire, A or B? This one may be a bit tougher. What do you guys think? Give you guys 5 seconds. Okay, it looks like there's quite a mix between A and B. All right, so ready for the answer? Okay, this is a trick question because I would not hire either of them. Okay, and I'll tell you my reason. What I said earlier was correct, that I feel that traits generally are more important than experience. However, for certain product domains, unfortunately, experience is important, especially since this is an opening for a senior PM role. So I cannot expect someone who has absolutely no experience in blockchains, in cryptocurrencies, to come in, immediately understand the super complex and intricate world of decentralized finance, DeFi, and be able to build a compelling crypto product, for the users without some experience. Especially candidate B, who is not even a retail investor in crypto and probably only knows as much about crypto as what he or she reads in the news, right? So yeah, so this is actually a curveball. Sorry about that, but I would not hire any of these. For a very specific product domains, like in this case, DeFi crypto, I would certainly look for someone with experience. Okay, cool. So because this is a product management talk, here is another acronym for you guys. Okay, PULSE. All right, traits that make great product managers even if they have limited experience. So this is just my personal framework that basically I came up with through my experience of interviewing dozens and dozens of PMs in the past 5-6 years and building up our product teams, as well as talking to my peers in the product management space in Singapore and Southeast Asia, and also understanding from them how they hire and what are some of the leading indicators they look at as well for PM hires. So first, let's start with P. P is for purpose, okay? Why is sense of purpose important? If you remember our first example earlier, our first game, candidate A had a ton of purpose. Well, sense of purpose to define it means knowing exactly why you want to be here and knowing that this company is the best fit for you. With purpose, it breeds passion. With passion, it breeds the desire to know, to curiosity, the desire to learn everything about this new domain. And of course, with that comes motivation. Now, remember, the central thesis here is that we are hiring inexperienced PMs, and we want to look at mid-career changers, switchers, PMs that have no experience. So the on-ramp for these experienced PM candidates will be steep. So having a strong sense of curiosity and motivation is critical, right? So how do you identify candidates with this trait? So a few questions you can try. One of my favorite questions to ask is, I will say, you have many options in the job market today. Why do you feel that this role is the best fit for you? So this is fairly standard. And at the same time, it sort of disarms them a little bit by telling them that, hey, you know what? There are many different options that you can pursue in this red hot job market. And it's up to them to justify to you why exactly is it that they feel that this company is right for them. Similarly, to make sure that their individual values align with your company values, I would ask them, in any company you will work for, what are the company values that are the most important to you, right? And from that, you can also get insight to sense that, okay, is there a fit in terms of the company as well as the candidate? What motivates you when it comes to product management? And this is especially for mid-career switchers who may be working as a consultant or engineer or something else before, and they want to be in product. Why? Is it just because you read all the news about Stripe and all those, and Lyft and Uber and all those other startups? It seems that product managers are raking in the dough. Is that the reason why? Or is there something deeper, something else, right? So to understand the motivation. I would also ask candidates about their job history and why did they choose to join each company that they work for. And again, right, this will also show that, you know what, every career switch along their journey, what was the motivation behind that. So having a strong sense of purpose, especially for new hires or junior hires or mid-career switchers, is very important to me. Okay, U is for upbeat, all right? Why is being upbeat important? So to be honest, like if you look at what a PM does, a PM is the glue that holds a particular project team together. And usually when when shit hits the fan, when things look super grim, the PM is the only cheerleader on the team, the only motivator that's actually holding the team together, right? Team morale is generally a force multiplier, a team multiplier, and it always starts with a PM. So having a PM be able to lead the team, be able to stick the team together, to motivate the team, to be a cheerleader for the team is super important. And the great thing is that this is a soft skill that doesn't need any experience. You either have this or you don't, right? So how do I identify candidates with this trait? Frankly speaking, this is actually one of the easier traits to identify just by interacting with talking to the candidate during the interview. You can look at their behavior, the motivation, how passionate, how excited they get about things, and just generally, if you look at how they communicate, you can probably 70–80% already know that is this guy generally an optimistic, upbeat person, or is more of a pessimistic, reserved, defensive person, right? Beyond that, we can also ask them things like, can you share with me what are your best tactics to motivate your colleagues and teammates? Go directly to the crux. What is it? How do you generally motivate your team? Can you tell me when was the last time you were really excited at work? Right. Again, this is sort of the kind of open-ended question that shines a lot about the user's personality. Can you describe your ideal workplace? Another open-ended question. And based on the answer, you can get a sense of, is this guy more of an optimistic person? The expectations of this person when working in a workplace that's considered ideal, how is it that the people interact with each other, right? So all these questions can tell you a lot about whether this person is an optimistic, upbeat person or not. Okay, L for logic. This is arguably the most important trait for inexperienced PM hires. Why is being logical important? I won't waste a lot of time on this because I think as all of us are PMs, we all know logic and process drives everything a PM does. You don't necessarily have to have experience, but you must be able to interpret data, stick to a certain process, and have a logical framework to think through problems. And again, right, this is why I mentioned earlier in the game, having a consultancy background generally, based on my own experience, is a good leading indicator for this. Okay, how to identify candidates with this trait? Well, first of all, standard PM questions, we can ask questions around prioritization, understanding what kind of framework, what kind of thought process a person comes up with in order to prioritize tasks. And it doesn't have to be like a PM roadmap. It doesn't have to be like a list of features. Even if someone who doesn't have experience being a PM in the past, in their work, they certainly have to prioritize, in some way, shape, or form. So ask them about that. If you're an accountant, how do you prioritize the kind of work that you have to do on a day in, day out basis? If you're an engineer, how do you prioritize that? If you're a consultant, how do you prioritize, right? Check for that logical thought process, okay, and see if it's reasonable. Another class of questions I really like is questions about market sizing. And these don't have to be dumb questions like, oh, can you estimate the volume of Mount Fuji? Or how many pennies do you think you will fill up like the Central Park in New York or something like that? Those are quite dumb, right? In my opinion. And generally, even companies like Google and stuff, they don't even ask those anymore. But being able to accurately, or it doesn't even have to be accurate, but being able to come up with a train of thought around how to properly size the market, especially a market that you may be familiar with, does show a lot in terms of how well this person can logically think through problems. Like it can be even something of a smaller size. Like for example, let's say you live in a condo, right? The question could be, how would you estimate the number of cars that go in and out of your condo car park every day, right? So then, you look at the person's thought process. Okay, first you have to sort of estimate how many people live in here. What's the assumption of the ratio of people, car ownership, between the number of people living and all that. And then basically based on behaviors, you drive out, drive in, maybe once or twice a day. This is how you come up with it, right? The answer is never going to be correct. Okay, and honestly, whether it's correct or not, you will never know anyway. Okay, but to be able to just walk you through a thought process on how you do this type of market sizing shows whether this person can stick to a logical framework and whether this guy is logical or not and can digest data. All right. Some other questions I like: how do you evaluate the success or failure of a feature? And would you launch a feature if it decreased KPI A by plus 20%, but decreased KPI B by minus 30%? So usually this type of question is pretty popular in product management interviews, right? Where you ship something new, but one of your important KPIs were increased by 20%. Very happy about that, but it also decreased one of your secondary KPIs by 30%. So then you have to ask the guy, okay, first of all, what do you think about that? How would you investigate why this happened? And at the end of the day, will you ship this or not? And to let them walk through the thought process, the logical framework of why they would do it or why they would not do it is actually a very good insight into their logical thinking. And again, right, none of these questions actually require the guy to actually have experience building products before, but it does require the guy to have a logical frame of thought. All right, moving on. S is for Streetwise. So why is being Streetwise important? In my opinion, PMs oftentimes are the only one on the team that really must drive action and remove obstacles and get things done, right? Again, PMs, get most of the credit when something successful ships. At the same time, there's also most of the responsibility to make sure that, things get done, right? And most PMs, to be honest, also have no authority, right? So you have to be able to leverage your own influence and other means to motivate others to action. So all this is really about being streetwise, being able to, figure ways out to get stuff done, okay? And how do you identify candidates with this trait? Well, so we can directly ask them, can you tell me about a time you had to persuade someone in authority to follow your suggestion? So again, how do you influence without authority? What's the first thing you do if you hire you, right? This is a great open-ended question to sort of understand that, okay, you're coming into a new organization. How would you lay out your land? How would you, start moving things? How get the ball rolling without much guidance, with ambiguity? How will we start getting things done, right? So that's a good question for that. What do you do if your boss asks you to do something that you think is a terrible idea? This is about conflict resolution, especially with someone who has authority over you. The standard answer from Amazon is disagree but commit, right? That's one possibility, but it's also good to hear the candidate explain and share, okay, this is how I would do it. All right. And again, like I mentioned before, being a former entrepreneur is a great leading indicator for being streetwise, because regardless whether you're a successful entrepreneur or failed entrepreneur, regardless you like to do it or you're forced to do it, you know, being an entrepreneur, being a CEO or founder of a company basically forces you to be able to get shit done. Okay. And that is from almost every entrepreneur I've spoken with, you know, before. If you want to be successful, or at least try to be successful, no matter what, you just have to get stuff done, regardless, bottom line, because no one else will do it for you. All right. So I love hiring people with previous entrepreneurial experience. Okay, for E, I cheated. Okay, it's actually standard for 2, which is eloquence and empathy. Now, if you think about it, you may think that, okay, well, hey, Jonathan is just cheating because these two have nothing to do with each other. But the reality is empathy and eloquence actually are closer to each other than you think, and I'll explain why. If you think about it, eloquence is about communication. It's being able to effectively let other people understand your position and point of view. Yeah, that's what communicating is about, right? If you're eloquent, you know, you can communicate well. Empathy is actually the reverse of that. Empathy is being able to effectively extract and understand other people's position and point of view, right? Someone who is strong in empathy will be able to relate and understand to their users' frustrations, whereas someone who is more obtuse with no empathy, they're not able to successfully extract and understand what other people's positions and situation are, what their point of view is thinking, right? So actually these two, in my opinion, is actually two sides of the same coin, right? Both traits are critical for PMs, as all of you know. So how do you identify candidates with these traits? Well, the easy one is communication, because again, communication skills, I feel, are easy to identify just by interacting with the candidate during the interview. Usually within the first 5 minutes, you generally already know how well this person is as in terms of being a communicator, right? You know, do they get flustered? You know, do they establish eye contact? You know, do they sound convicted when they talk and things like that? You know, that's pretty easy. Now, empathy is a bit more difficult. So questions you can ask to gauge empathy are, for example, can you describe a time where you have to resolve a conflict between different team members, right? Conflict resolution also depends a lot on empathy, because it's also about understanding different perspectives of different team members, right? So that's one possible way. Another more practical question could be, an unhappy customer emails you about package that was lost by the post office and wants a refund. However, your company policy limits refunds to only defective products. So what do you do in this case? All right? Do you kowtow to the customer? But then that's also not very good, because, you know, do you really understand why the company has to set a policy like that? Are you creative enough to reconcile the two differences and come up with a solution somewhere in the middle? So again, this is all signs that you can, you know, maybe you can give them future credit or something. This is all signs of someone who is able to understand all different types of perspectives and being able to reconcile them together, right? So that's for eloquence and empathy. So that's pulse, purpose, upbeat, logic, streetwise, and eloquence and empathy. Okay, so this is really my personal framework on how to identify the right traits, especially important. Obviously, all of these traits are important for experienced PMs as well, but especially if you're looking to hire a non-experienced PM or mid-career switcher or junior hire, having these traits, in my personal experience, give you a much, much better chance of this person being successful and being able to grow into a successful PM. Okay, so now let's answer some frequently asked questions. What about technical experience? Is this experience? Is this important? To be honest with you, I feel, again, personal experience, technical experience is not a prerequisite in becoming a great PM. However, there are advantages of being technical, right, or having an engineering background. Number one, you can communicate better with engineers, which is always a good thing. Number two, you can empathize better with engineers. If they say that, Jonathan, I know we have a deadline, but I really can't do this because I need to refactor this, and you know that, you know, this impacts this component, all that. if you have an engineering background, you can better empathize with what engineers are talking about. And also, again, right, we know empathy is important because you need to understand all perspectives and come to a resolution based on that. And lastly, it also can help reduce round tripping during discussions with stakeholders. So for example, instead of when you're talking with your business folks or users, or every time they say something, oh, sorry, I need to check with my engineers. Oh, sorry, I need to check with engineers. If you are somewhat technical with some kind of engineering background, you may be able to save some time and be more effective and efficient because you're able to represent the engineering team on some of the basic questions that are maybe more technical in nature. Like upfront, you know that, no, you know what, this can't be done. No, I cannot build an Android app using Visual Basic. You know that, right? You don't have to check, right? Now, having said that, certain product domains may greatly favor technical experience. For example, if you're building an API product, if you're building multimedia products, these are all domains that obviously if you have a technical background, it would actually be a lot more advantageous for you. Again, not saying that it's a prerequisite, but it will certainly be more advantageous, and I would certainly value someone who is technical if I was looking to fill roles in those domains. Okay, what about domain knowledge? Well, domain knowledge may be important or even critical for certain product domains, as we established with our third example in our game earlier. For example, if you're building blockchain products, industrial products, something to do with AI, stuff to do with AI and all that, it's really, really hard. It's a very hard on-ramp for you if you don't have at least some experience or some domain knowledge in that area. Okay, not saying that it's possible, but it's almost close to impossible. All right, or you will not be shortlisted for the role. You probably won't even get an interview in that case. But for most product domains, especially again, in my opinion, like B2B SaaS products, B2C, do not need domain knowledge, because at the end of the day, most of us are already users of those systems in some way, shape, or form, right? So we're never starting from zero in those domains. Okay. Frankly speaking, there are a few things I feel that are more important than domain knowledge. Like even if someone doesn't have domain knowledge and they get hired, having good documented institutional knowledge within your company, which means great onboarding materials, great knowledge bases or documentation on previous projects and stuff like that. That is so much more important, especially if the person is curious. Again, remember, that's a trait that we want in a PM candidate. It's a lot better, and it's probably easier for them to ramp up in that way. Having a logical mindset to be able to digest and interpret new data, that's obviously important. And of course, curiosity, which we mentioned, is important, right? As long as you have that desire to learn and on-ramp, plus you have great documentation within your company, that's good enough. Okay, what about this thing that people call product sense or product intuition, product mindset? Well, so first of all, like it's a bit nebulous, so I think we have to define that a bit. What is product sense? So I like this definition from Shreyas Doshi, who's a product leader at Stripe. So the ability to make correct decisions even when faced with considerable ambiguity. And I guess to qualify that, it's to make correct product decisions, right? Even when faced with ambiguity. So according to Doshi, the three aspects of product sense are really domain knowledge, combined with having empathy, combined with creativity. Guess what? We already covered all this already, right? Domain knowledge can be acquired, can be learned as long as you have other traits and you have good institutional documentation. Empathy certainly is a trait I would want in my PM. And creativity. I mean, people may think that creativity is something that you either have or don't have, but in reality, creativity is something that can be groomed over time as well. As you talk to more people, as you expose yourself to the product more, to this industry, to the domain more, naturally, you'll become more creative in terms of the type of possibilities and options that you'll come up with when you're thinking of product, right? So product sense can be groomed, is basically what I'm trying to say. And in fact, having a strong logical framework to process and help source, validate, and improve ideas are just as important. Like we no longer work in the world of you think of Steve Jobs as this lone visionary product leader. Everything comes from his head. he's just a genius. Even if that's the case, you won't find that person when you're interviewing and hiring PMs, because how many people like that are there, right? The reality is most people are not standalone product geniuses, right? But a great PM, especially a great product leader, is someone who has a strong logical framework and process to be able to source different ideas from multiple areas, whether it's internally within the team or externally, and to be able to validate and improve these ideas. So that's just as important as having product sense, all right? Which again, can be grouped. Lastly, a very popular question. What about an MBA? Is an MBA important for product managers? Good to have, but not mandatory. And at the risk of pissing off all the MBAs on this call today, in my opinion, again, based on my experience talking to my teammates and some, even some product managers that I worked with in the past who have MBAs, MBA programs offer two main things, right? Number one is they teach you a bunch of business frameworks and they give you a lot of case studies to research and stuff. And secondly, very important, right, is all the network opportunities that you get, right? Establish, make new contacts. Many of these people who will eventually grow into their own product leaders or entrepreneurs or VPs and CEOs and whatnot. So those two are very important. Both could be useful for PMs, but again, neither of which are critical in terms of becoming a great PM. So when I see a resume with an MBA, I will note that as a plus, but I will not note that as something that I would certainly need. And if another candidate tests out better, even without an MBA or academic qualifications, I will certainly not hold that against them, right? You can consider candidates of alternative qualifications too, right? Looking at former entrepreneurs, again, we talked about that, as well as other advanced degrees. If you want to look at people who are willing and have the discipline to go through, PhDs, masters, in order to get a further understanding in a area of passion that they want to study in, right? Okay, wrapping up. Hiring is just the first part, right? At the end of the day, once you get that hire in, this guy, no experience, no PM experience, but has all the traits you want, you have to help them to be successful, okay? A few things we do at Vicky at One Championship. Number one, we assign a PM buddy, okay? So basically, especially during the on-ramp PM, partnering experienced PM with a non-experienced PM is tremendously useful in my experience in helping someone ramp up. Conduct frequent one-on-ones. And these one-on-ones are not just, hey, what's the update on this project? There are plenty of other meetings, whether it's stand-ups or whatever, that you can get updates on project, but these one-on-ones are really about, hey, are you facing any difficult situations? They're more coaching sessions in terms of helping this person, grow into the role of product management. And lastly, as a product leader myself, I like to practice situational leadership. A lot of people say, you know what, I'm not a micromanager, I don't like to micromanage my people. But the reality is that may be great for some people, but especially for new people that just come in, they're super motivated to learn, but they have no idea what they're doing. That is actually a prime time to actually micromanage them and they will welcome that, right? Because that's the time that in the S1 bucket, they need the most direction. They're motivated, but they want someone to tell them what to do, right? So situational leadership just means that depending on what phase of a cycle that an employee is in, whether they're new, they're demotivated or whatnot, you can practice different leadership styles. So especially for new PMs, that are trying to ramp up, it's okay to be a bit more hands-on approach, a bit more micromanaging. Once they get ramped up, then that's when you hands off and just give them encouragement, right? So to sum it up, in summary, hiring is often a trade-off decision between having experience, which will provide you a faster ramp, but having the right traits providing a higher ceiling, okay? And in my opinion, I very much prefer to prioritize traits over skills or experience, because identifying the right traits in candidates, gives them a bit higher ceiling. And you can also look at my Pulse framework if you want some suggestions on how to do that. At the same time, though, you have to also understand what are the traits and experience that are critical for your product domain and what are good to have. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some product domains that having just traits may not be sufficient. You really do need experience to excel in those areas. And lastly, making the hire is only the beginning. Help the new hires be successful through one-on-ones, PM, buddies, and situational leadership. And I'll close with this, right? A great product manager is like the oil that makes everything go well, and a bad product manager is the stand that makes everything stop. And like I mentioned earlier, PMs get a lot of credit when we ship things, but the reality is we don't really ship anything because all the work is actually all done by our peers. Your engineers are the people who built the code. Your designers are the people who actually come up with the design. Your marketing team is the people who actually help you go to market. But you really are the glue that holds the team together. And if you have a strong PM, it becomes a force multiplier. And basically, you can see everyone excel. If you have a bad PM with the wrong traits, it really grinds everything to a halt. No one's happy and whatnot. So that's it. That's just a quick sharing of my experience in hiring. And I would love to answer some of your questions now. And I see that there's quite a bunch. Let's see. Smart, how do you want to do this? Should we just go through the list or what?
Yeah. So we'll just go to the list. So yeah, first of all, that was a great episode. Plenty of insights there around what matters and what really doesn't. Just by the way, a small note, we've hosted Shreyas Doshi earlier, so that's like a feel-good factor for all of us here at DPF. So yeah, you quoted him, so that was just brought it up. Yeah, we can straight away jump into the Q&A. How we'll do this is like me and Aditya will just take turns and bring up questions to you, picking up from the questions that the audience posted.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's how we will go about it. So we still have good 10-12 minutes before we wrap up. So we should have enough time there. Yeah. So the first question, that is there is, did you come up with the Pulse acronym yourself?
Yes, I did.
Or is it a common PM acronym I'm not aware of?
No. It's actually my own framework, and to be honest, some of the letters you can see that I actually chose strange words that we don't usually use to represent. Like instead of upbeat, usually you'll call it optimism. Instead of eloquence, you'll call it communication. So I did try very hard to try to fit it into the word pulse. Yes, you can tell. Yeah.
That's great.
Interesting. And like, I think we were chatting about this before this call, but would you like to elaborate on your journey from Microsoft to One Championship? Because you spent several years at Microsoft
Yeah.
building consumer-facing products, and then you jumped into content, media, live
Yeah.
sports, the entertainment domain, right? So it'll be interesting for everyone to know how that journey shaped up.
Yeah. So I'm actually a mid-career switcher myself. And even though I'm a product leader today, I actually don't have a lot of PM experience if you talk about a number of years. I've only truly started doing product management when I joined Rakuten Viki, which is about 5-6 years ago. So I'm actually only 6 years experience in product management. Most of my time when I was at Microsoft was actually doing consumer marketing, as well as other things like developer relations and business functions as well. And I started out as a developer in my career as an engineer. But again, right, if I look at why I feel I was able to make the transition reasonably well, and if I grade myself against my own framework, one of the key things why Rakuten was very willing to give me a chance, even as a senior hire, was because I feel that I really had a strong sense of purpose as to why I want to do this, right? For me, I really want to work in the entertainment space because I feel that using technology to build entertainment products is something that the world truly needs now. The world now is increasingly become a crappier and crappier place, whether it's global warming or geopolitical conflicts or hatred or whatnot, bigotry.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people want to be entertained after a long, tough day. So
Right.
if you look at other companies, they may make a ton of money, but they trade on your privacy. They do other stuff that's shady. In the entertainment space, we make you laugh, we inspire you, we entertain you. And for that honor, we have a privilege of collecting a small fee from you, right? So it's a very above
Right.
board business. This is something I feel very strongly about. So I was very clear that this is what I wanted to do. And again, right, so sense of purpose is strong. And I feel that I'm a reasonably okay communicator. And in terms of having a logical framework, I've ran business units before, and things like that. So I felt that a lot of my traits in my previous work as an engineer, as in Microsoft, was translatable for me in product management. And I'm glad that Rakuten Vicky saw it that way as well, gave me a chance, and hopefully I made them proud, and and doing okay right now. So yeah, I mean, so it's possible. Like mid-career transitions are possible, even for senior level, for mid-level, for junior level. I feel that as long as you have the right traits, and as the hiring manager, you're able to pick out those traits, that you can take a chance on these people.
Awesome, super interesting.
Right. So another question that's coming in is like you've worked for multiple businesses across the 15 years experience that you have. Companies like, of course, One Championship, Theta Labs, Microsoft. So what sort of differences in PM hires have you observed when working for these companies? Is there any set defined factor, or is it all of these businesses operate in differently when it comes to PM hiring?
Mm, I'm not. Can you repeat the last part of that question? What differences?
Yeah. So what sort of differences in those hiring processes, or the kind of traits that you would look for, varies as you go into one organization or the other?
Okay, yeah. So if you're in a big MNC, obviously the hiring manager holds some weight in terms of what they want to hire, but your company also probably has some pretty strict HR guidelines on how they want to run the recruiting process, as well as what are the different things that they would like to test for, right? In a smaller company like the VK One Championship, we are a bit more free for basically the product, the hiring manager to decide what type of candidate they want, right? So at least for my last two stops, now in One Championship and then Rakuten Vicky, basically the hiring manager, the product leader, uh, we define the criteria in terms of how we want to hire. We set up the interview loops. So I want someone from the design team, the engineering team, blah, 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 to interview the candidate. But when I was at Microsoft, when we wanted to hire people, Microsoft had a more stricter interview process. Okay, you must have uh, these two people in the loop. You must have at least one VP, and you must have one bar raise interview or whatever, right? And all of them test for different things, because the consideration is no longer just local, limited to your business unit. It's also about the overall culture of the company, right? So I would say, depending on the size of company, usually different companies will have different processes. Generally, smaller companies are a bit more laissez-faire. It's up to the hiring manager to decide.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Also, I personally wanted to ask, like, a lot of the skills that we spoke about during this session, including the acronyms in Pulse, such as being street smart, being upbeat, etc. Are
Mhm.
there certain hacks that you use to judge those skills? Obviously, you had certain questions listed,
Yeah.
but do you have certain ways over the years that you have developed in which you judge for those skills? And how can someone on the other side prepare for those skills to be able to represent themselves better in an interview?
Well, the I'll answer the second part first, which is
Yeah.
the unfortunate part is that because it's a trait and not a skill, right? Many of
Yeah.
these things you either have it or you don't. You can try to improve on it, but frankly speaking, yes, like if you're a communicator, right? If you're a strong communicator, you know, even if you're a weak communicator, you can probably through practice, improve on how you communicate, right? If you are a bit more like a think on your feet, based on intuition type and not really a logical type person, over time, you can probably groom a more logical mindset through experience and whatnot, right? However, other traits like having a sense of purpose, that comes from within. You either have it or not,
Right.
and it depends on your internal motivation. You cannot fake it. Well, you can try to fake it, but it'll come across as non-genuine, right? Things like being upbeat, that's your personality, right? If you're either an optimistic person or you're not an optimistic person, you're either a natural cheerleader or someone who naturally will bring the team down. And those people are really easy to identify, even during the span of, say, a 45 to 1 hour interview. You can almost immediately tell, based on their demeanor, how they express themselves, what kind of person they are. So I would say, yes, some of the traits can be groomed, but some of the traits are, I'm sorry, you either just have it or you don't.
Got it.
Jonathan, another questions that coming in is,
Yeah,
a transition or a career switch from, say, a business analyst role to, product management.
yeah,
We do have a lot of folks here in India who are in those profiles of business analytics,
yeah,
and they just want to get into product management. So, what advice would you have for them?
yeah. So first of all, again, I feel that everything starts from purpose. Ask yourself, why do you want to be a PM? You know, is it because it's higher pay? Okay, well, fine. That could be a reason, right? And there's no shame in that. Um, is it because you genuinely have a love to want to build products, or is it because of prestige, right? What is really your reason for wanting to transition from a business analyst to a PM? Because business analyst is not your ceiling. But if you want to, and I presume when we talk about business analysts, it's really in the context of maybe working on in a client environment, or maybe in a consulting firm, or whatnot, right? That's not your ceiling. You can very well advance in your career, without ever experiencing building a product, if that's what you want to do, right? So really, what's your reason for transitioning PM? Now, the good news is, as a business analyst, again, based on my understanding of what a business analyst does, do have some strong qualities that make them pretty good PMs. Right? Number one, they deal a lot with data, right? They have to be data driven, and many of them, again, if they're from a consultancy background, should have a strong logical framework. And for BA, oftentimes you have to present your findings or present your analysis, which means that presentation and communication skills is also something that can potentially be groomed and improved, which is something that can apply again as a PM as well. So I would say that there are a lot of transferable skills and traits from a business analyst to PM, but it's really about asking yourself why you want to do that. And if it's something that you really do believe in, make sure when you interview for the role, let the interviewer know, I'm meant for product management. This is definitely what I want to do because blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Interesting. So there are two questions along the similar lines
Sure.
around product management for the B2B space. So the first question would be, what are some skills or like hard skills that say a product management manager for a B2B company should possess? And secondly, if someone wanted to transition from a B2B startup to a B2C company, how would they go about it? What are some gaps that they need to fill, or how should they approach that?
Okay. Um, so I'll answer the second part first. So for B2B to B2C, I think it's very straightforward. There's really no gaps. In fact, at Rakuten Viki, I've hired PMs before that came from a B2B product. No issue there. And the reason is because B2C is always simpler, if I would put it that way, in the sense that because all of us are essentially users of B2C products. So
Right.
none of us have zero domain knowledge of what exactly it is that, yeah, from a user perspective, we want to see in a world-class B2C product, right? Now, B2B is a bit different because not all of us are merchants, not all of us are bankers, not all of us are, farmers that depend on some logistics solution and whatnot, right? So B2B domain experience, it may not be prevalent for everyone. But again, right, if you're talking about working on a B2B product, I think in terms of hard skills, domain experience aside, because that is, again, in my opinion, always something that can be picked up. But in terms of hard skills, like, frankly speaking, right, I mean, like taking a step back, if you look at what us PMs do, nothing we really do on a day in, day out basis in terms of like our trade or our skills is really very technical. I mean, yes, you need to organize a roadmap. You need to know how to prioritize. You may need to learn, the cost of delay formula, know the RICE framework. You need to know how to run a Scrum. You need to have certain methodologies, do SWOT analysis, but or maybe use Jira, but nothing there is rocket science, to use an old and boring cliche. None of that is really hard skills that are very difficult to pick up, right? Anyone with the right motivations can pick those things up, right? So again, that's why I usually like to focus more on traits, because even if you don't know any of those things I just talked about, right? If you have the right motivation, if you have the right traits, it's gonna be trivial for you to pick those things up and to excel. And I've done that before. I mean, I hired PMs at Vicky before, where complete, like the first example that I gave was based on a real example. No experience, failed entrepreneur, but she just knew that she really, really wanted to be a PM, and she really, really wanted to work at Vicky because of the domain, and plus she tested well in terms of logic and whatnot, right? So yeah, everything else she didn't know. Coming in, she didn't know how to use Jira. She didn't know how to organize a roadmap, or what are the methodologies we use to prioritize different tasks, what the frameworks we use. But within a month, done. Everything is second nature. Nothing there is difficult to pick up. So, and again, I think I'm just answering a bit more broadly, but this applies to B2B as well. I feel that if you're PM, regardless whether you're a B2B or a B2C, there's honestly very few hard skills you really need to have when you step into the role. There may be hard skills you need to develop as you grow into your role. Like, of course, obviously, when you start being a PM, you have to know how to organize your roadmap and do all those things. But none of that is really difficult, I would say. And I'm not sure whether that actually answered the question or not, but I just sort of rambled
Yeah,
on.
that
Sorry about that. Yeah,
no, that was a good answer, because I think fundamentally the skills, like you said, remain the same. Just the context changes, so you need to fit in that.
precisely. Yeah.
All right, guys. So yeah, we're overboard on the time, but I don't want to really want to miss this, which is the personal Q&A rapid fire that we have for you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
So we'll just ask you a few quick questions.
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the first question is three early stage startups that you are excited about.
3 early stage startups that I'm excited about. Huh. How do you define early stage?
That's
Yeah. Okay. I mean, okay. Well, I'll just give you an answer since this is a rapid fire. Anyway, so I'm actually very bullish on the. I know I used a crypto example earlier, not without reason, because I'm actually really bullish on some of the developments that's happening in the crypto space right now, is especially around decentralized finance. Any of the companies that's working on interesting projects in that space that are not scammy companies, or anonymous teams. I think that's quite promising. Alameda Research, based in Hong Kong, who runs the FTX exchange. That's a company that I'm really bullish on. They're also venture backed. In the B2C space, are there any early stage companies that I'm really excited about right now? Uh, Not really, not really. Yeah, I mean, I really love TikTok. I think TikTok still has the opportunity to go 5x, 10x from here, but I mean, it's still banned in India and it's about to be banned in the US. So what do I know, right? Uh, yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in tech right
Got it. And the next rapid fire question would be, what are three books that you would recommend? It doesn't have to be product management specific, but you can pick any book.
now. Okay, I'll only give you two, okay, because that's what
Yeah.
I always remember. Number one, Getting Things Done. Okay, that's a fantastic book if you just want to learn how to organize your life. And it has helped me tremendously. In achieving inbox zero, being able to organize all your files and your life around a system that just works. Yeah, that's amazing. I really like getting things done. Yes, David Allen, that's the guy who wrote it. Second thing is because I'm also a retail investor. So one of the best books that really lays out the foundation of how markets work is A Random Walk Down Wall Street. It's an old book, and maybe some of the principles in the past may not apply as much today. A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Yeah, I'll type it here. But it's still a phenomenal book in terms of like walk down, walk. It's still a phenomenal book
Yeah, just
just
put
to
it in the
understand
chat. Yeah.
yeah, just to understand the fundamentals of how the markets work and whatnot. Is there another book that I
You have
like?
answered two, so I'll,
Yeah, let me
yeah.
check my.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, okay, another one I like. I'm a big fan of understanding body language. So there's this book called. Let me check my bookshelf. It's called Body Language by Mike Keys. So I will type it here, Body Language. The author is Mike Keys, I think, right? So this is a phenomenal book. Again, it lets you, and once you read it, your mind will become blown because you will now see people in a different light. When someone is talking to you, like in the past, you may not think something about it, but now by just looking at Smart holding his hand under his chin, I know he's in an evaluation gesture, and he's now thinking, Jonathan, is this guy full of shit, or he's really recommending the right things to us. So it really will make you change how you look at people, and sometimes to be even able to preempt, certain conflicts because you know how they're feeling based on their body language. So those would be the three books I recommend.
Awesome, awesome.
Okay, three folks that you would like to give a shout out to, that others here, the audience here should definitely follow or reach out to for the product management ambitions.
You mean product people?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll just type it in the chat box. All right. So one of the people that I really enjoy the work of is called Martin Eric. I don't know if I'm spelling his name right. So he's a product leader. He used to be a product leader, and now he's doing mostly consulting and talks. A lot of what I learned as a product leader actually comes from frameworks from him. So you can just check his speaker deck. He has a ton of like presentations and stuff on helping you to become a better product manager and other stuff as well. What else? There's someone that a friend of mine who basically he's also a product leader, but what he really does is he actually is a community builder. So he actually builds out the product manager community in Southeast Asia, organizing events and talks. And sometimes just for a networking perspective, you can check out Colin Powell from LinkedIn. So he hosts a podcast on product management as well, who he will invite different product leaders from across Asia, to appear on podcast to talk about product management. So that's another person I think that you can follow if you just want to network a bit broadly beyond just South Asia, but also Southeast Asia as well. Yeah. So, oh, okay. I see why, because it's sending to all panelists. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just
Yeah, yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to recopy yeah. So
Right.
Martin Erickson, Colin Powell. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think those are the two that's kind of top of mind. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Got it. So this will be the last question from our side, but it's also my favorite question. So, what would you say to young Jonathan? Say, if you were to meet your 20-year-old self, what would you say to yourself? It can be anything around life, just general principles or nothing. Maybe it can be career related as well, but whatever you think you should say to young Jonathan.
Hold on one second. I'm just gonna finish typing the thing so everyone can see. Okay. What would I tell young Jonathan? Um, I would say, don't be afraid to try different things and even try them earlier. Because especially like I mean I'm Chinese. and in Chinese culture, generally we're a bit more conservative, right? So I'm glad that, for example, I took the different steps I did in my career, going from, different roles, engineering and whatnot. But a lot of times I feel that, a lot of those steps and transitions I made were a bit too late. And eventually, like, it took me a while and I reached what I really liked, which is building product. But it wasn't only until 6 years ago, right? Out of a 15, close to 20-year career. So when you're young, I feel that if you have the right passions, don't be afraid to take chances, even if it means that restarting from the ground up again, and take whatever opportunity that comes your way, right? Never, don't easily just say no to everything. I know the joke is, as product managers, we're taught to say no to a lot of stuff, right? But in life,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly, right? But in life, you have to say yes to most things because that's really what opens your doors for you. Now, if you say yes to something and then you experience that something and then it sucks, fine, cut it off. You don't need to pursue any further. No guilt about that. But in life, you should say yes more than no. Even though as product managers, we should say no more than yes, if that makes sense.
Awesome, awesome.
Right. So, yeah, we'll just moving on to the last part, which
Cool.
is, yeah, Jonathan, also just one small thing, if because we have a few unanswered questions, if that's fine with you, you could probably drop in your email as well, or
Yeah,
just,
yeah, sure, no problem. If you can
okay,
just consolidate a list, send it to me. I'll just send that back the answers I have. Yeah.
cool. That sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. So, just going to the last part of this, which is, of course, a big surprise that we had planned for everyone.
Oh yeah, that's right. Ooh.
Yep. So, yeah. So a lot of you would already know that we're coming up with the Product Summit 2020. It's on the 10th and 11th of October. The big theme is building high growth products for India, and it's in collaboration with one of our very close partners, Inc. 42 Media, and it's India's first ever virtual summit with with the world going through a digital transformations and the governments promoting startups and companies to solve for India. It's time we break ground and break together the top minds from the industry, from the current product space, the wave that we have built, and share their wisdom and experiences with the product community. We are hosting speakers like Miten Sampad, who is an angel investor, CSO Times Internet, Nitin Kamath, founder and CEO Zerodha, Harsha Kumar, partner Lightspeed, and a lot more. uh, so we have a coupon for you guys, which would give you a discount on the tickets to for the 2 day event. And in fact, it was like a 1 day event that we originally planned, but it's with sponsors like AWS and Amplitude coming in, and a lot of speakers that we were actually able to talk to. We just made it into a full-fledged 2 day conference for everyone to actually learn from. So yeah, we'll be pasting okay. Aditya has already pasted the link there. So use this coupon. So this is of course exclusive to everyone who attended this session with Jonathan. And yeah, that's it from our side. Thank you so much for folks for all the love and support. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here and sharing your insights. And we hope everyone
Problem.
enjoyed and had fun.
Yeah. I'm honored your special coupon code has my name, John, in it too.
You'll get another special code, Jonathan. We'll be sending
Oh,
that to you.
okay.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to join the conference.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Thanks for having me. It's really been fun. And I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to share my experiences.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jonathan. Thanks, everyone, for joining. That's it from the product folks.
Cool. All right, man. Take care, guys.
take care. Bye bye. And we'll be
Bye.
putting a few links here so that everyone can follow Product Folks for future
Okay.
sessions.
And you'll send me the questions over email, I guess.
Yep, yep.
Sending questions.
We will do that.
And
Yes.
are we recording this session?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So we would be, yeah, sharing the recording with you pretty
Okay,
soon.
cool, cool, cool. I would love to see myself talk and laugh at.
No, we all had fun and had a great time. Thank you so much. Uh,
Okay, then I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna drop off then.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.